post-trib, but I consider myself in my approach to be not so much like I've got to know the events, but it's I got to know the God of the events and
I like that.
Why those events happen.
Yeah.
So why does he release judgment? Why does he do X, Y, Z? And it's because he's this type of God.
Right. Yeah.
So what, like, just real quick, what would you consider yourself to be on the spectrum of the whole concept of the rapture?
Okay.
And why?
Okay. Really great question. I love that. Okay. So pre-wrath, I was pre-trib forever. And it was like 2 years ago that I was just trying to put all these pieces together because there is so much there. And I was finally like at the point in my life where I was like, I want to understand this. I want to get this together. Yeah. Not saying that I've, finished it, but, I was like, all right, I need to get something solid here. So,
and this was all on your own?
Yeah.
No one was like taking you through a class or anything?
No.
Nice.
And so I was talking to God about it. I was like, I just really need to start putting these pieces together. So I ended up, it was right around the time I got into Greek. And I started learning Greek. Nice. And I love Greek. Like, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And so my teacher, or old teacher, because we ended up suspending our lessons for a while just because we're fostering. His schedules are crazy. But he had a colleague that I started watching on YouTube, and this guy is...
Who is it?
Alan Kirchner, and the guy is just brilliant. Like, he's I think he's like a doctoral candidate in Koine Greek, using the Byzantine pronunciation.
Nice.
Of course, not the Erasmian. but like, he did this debate with this guy, Tommy Ice, who he's like solid in the pre-trib camp. Yeah. So like the Left Behind people, you got like Tim LaHaye, like he's over there. Like I think they're like buddies or something. But he did a debate with him, and so a lot of it centered around 2 Thessalonians. And so I started looking at 2 Thessalonians, and it's crazy how. Here's how I understand 2 Thessalonians. So Paul went to Thessalonica. Preached. Grew the church there. Probably went away. Probably came back. During that time, he told them what was going to happen. Like he walked them through the events. Then he left, and sometime while he left, something happened. Like, and he even mentioned
in the church.
Yes, in the Thessalonica church.
Okay.
And he didn't know what it was, but he said whether by word or prophecy or whatever, somebody else has put some bad doctrine into you.
Gotcha.
Because they wrote to him concerned that they had missed the rapture, and so he wrote 2 Thessalonians back as a response to say, "No, you have not." Okay. And he said, "Here's how you know you haven't." This is in chapter 2. You know that you haven't because you haven't seen two things. You haven't seen the apostasia, which is
the falling away. Okay.
Exactly. And you haven't seen the Antichrist.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, the first one, all right, that's a little gray. We might be able to push that outside the 7 years. But the Antichrist is a totally different deal.
Gotcha.
Because we know that like the first seal is the Antichrist. So we're inside the tribulation already. And then you walk back to Daniel and you think about the beast.
Yeah.
And you think about the little horn that comes out of the beast.
Gotcha.
And like it doesn't grow up until that beast is already cranking.
Okay.
So
back up for 1 second. So the first seal is the first 4 seals are the 4 horsemen, right?
Right. Yeah.
The first seal is the
white horse.
White horse.
Yep.
And you're saying that's the Antichrist is riding the white horse?
Yes.
Okay. Does it explicitly say Antichrist?
No, it does not. But I think that's like been a pretty like standard interpretation.
Okay.
I think.
I gotcha.
So, anyways, my take on it is that if he's saying, all right, well, if he has to have come first and the Antichrist has to come inside the tribulation, well, then, obviously the rapture has to happen after the tribulation started.
Gotcha.
And so I just started walking through those events, and then you go into like chapter 6 of Revelation and you go through the first 6 seals. It's brutal. Like a quarter of the population's dead. You've had massive plagues.
The
World War
sixth seal
III.
there's a lot of persecution there.
So that's the 5th seal. The 5th seal is like really bad. We got martyrs. They're cranking through killing us. Like it's a second Holocaust. And then you get to the 6th seal and there's a massive earthquake. The moon turns blood red.
Gotcha.
And then that's when it says that the princes of the earth go underground. Yeah. So that right there that's a whole other conversation. With deep underground military bases and stuff like that. Yeah. We'll get into that, but at someday. But it's like he says that, and they said, "Hide us." They call it to the rocks and say, "Hide us, for the wrath of God and the Lamb has come today." And so it's like, I guess it doesn't say today, but has come. Yeah. And so it's like, that is marking his wrath to me. That's like the starting point. What happens right after that in chapter 7 is you have two groups. You've got this multitude in heaven that John just sees appear. And it is from every tribe, tongue, and nation. And to me, that's the church. It's like you see those bumper stickers that say, you know, every tribe, tongue, and nation or bust. That's us. Like, it's got to be.
What other body of people could it be?
I know, exactly. And then he's also marking the 144,000 Jews.
Okay.
And so it's like there's kind of like a handoff. Like we're handing the football off from the church to Israel, and Israel is now going to be cranking it, and we're going to go home.
So let me pause for a second. So you're connecting, you're using 2 Thessalonians, and I'm kind of doing this so that if anyone's listening to this and they want to dive into these scriptures, they can go. So
that's a great idea.
2 Thessalonians, you say chapter 2?
Yeah, chapter 2, but I would read like 1 and 2 for context.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then you're basically getting into the book of Revelation right after he goes through the 7 churches. So it would be chapter
6 and 7.
Chapter 4 is the throne. Chapter 5 is the Lamb.
Yeah, the Lamb comes, gets that. Yeah.
Okay. So then you're saying Revelation 6 is kind of the main one?
Yeah, I would say Revelation or 2 Thessalonians 1 and 2. It's only 3 chapters. You might as well hit the third one, all right, while you're at it. Get some extra coffee, why not? And then skip over to Revelation. It's chapters 6 and 7.
Nice.
Yeah.
So those are some of the main scriptures, and you mentioned Daniel too, but those are some of the main scriptures that helped you to form some of your end time theology.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to the rapture.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. And so, you know, some people pre-trib push back and says, all right, you know, we're not appointed to wrath. Agreed. We're not. We're definitely not appointed to God's wrath.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anywhere in scripture that says that the wrath is synonymous with the full 7 years.
Okay.
Like
nice.
and that's the way I look at it. It's like it's partially, and you know, when you think about the context of the church, it's not like we haven't been through persecution.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah, you go back to like first century, second century Christians.
Yeah.
It's
actually what caused it to grow.
Yeah, under Caligula. I mean, it's like we've had some bad times.
Yeah.
And so I think, and this goes back to American Christianity, we don't experience that.
Yeah.
Like, let's think about it. If we had the persecution that they had in Rome today, oh my goodness, like we would all
totally different.
Dude, we'd all think we were in the tribulation, and it might not even be that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we got to bucket that properly and in context.
Really
yeah.
So, so you're saying these scriptures have kind of shown you, and as it relates to the rapture, that the rapture does happen, because there are some camps that totally disregard the concept of the rapture, and they say the rapture is not even a thing. But you're acknowledging there is going to be a rapture, and it takes place after the tribulation starts. But before.
So this is a tough one. Now this is a tough one. I don't have the full map built out, and this is this is where I'm still up in the air on it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to happen, in my opinion, after the 6th seal. So that means we still got like 7 trumpets, 7 bowls.
Yeah.
We got a lot of action that's going to take place.
Yeah.
And to me, that all wraps in as the wrath period. So we get pulled out for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, we will go through up till the first 6 seals, which can be brutal.
Yeah.
And then we're gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what this does for me is I would consider myself to be somewhat of an evangelist.
Yeah.
Because anytime I get into when it comes to sharing, sharing scripture, sharing, I don't know, praying for people, or like reaching out, it usually turns into me trying to evangelize.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So the evangelist part of me is thinking about people who don't see the world through a biblical worldview. And when they hear this type of language, they think you're crazy. You're talking about a fairy tale. You're talking about dragons and all this stuff.
Yeah, literally
beasts.
Dragons.
So how does a person go from, and we're probably good examples, how does a person go from looking at this type of stuff in scripture and thinking this is a load of bull, to believing it wholeheartedly and like living your life by it? Like, how does that even happen?
I love that. Yeah, because I went to school and did hard science. Like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you go from that to literally like the great red dragon fighting the Archangel Michael? It's a good question.
Yeah.
And You know, a lot of it is on faith.
Yeah.
A lot of, you know, when it comes to end times, like here, all right. So here's a good question. So
I got you going, didn't I?
There we go. So here's a good question. So why does any one person really get into the end times?
I think if I were to answer that for me,
yeah,
I would think number one, I first got into the end times because it was different and it was kind of strange. And I was like, I want to understand this. But also, I think after my understanding of who God is started growing, it was like, kind of like, I always compare it to sports, especially basketball, because I played basketball. Like, you are very, very motivated in a basketball game, first, second, third quarter.
Right.
Because you know the fourth quarter is coming,
and
you know there will be an end to the game, and so your performance throughout the game has to go a certain way if you want to win the game at the end. So for me, it was like, I know that everything in human history is headed in one direction. I want to understand it, but also like I want to understand God and what He's up to.
That's good,
because to me, like, if you remove the end times and the second coming out of your like consciousness, like why are you living out your Christianity? Like of course you want to like love people and stuff like that, but like there's a bigger thing happening. So that's what it was for me.
I like that a lot. So this is gonna sound selfish, but my big my big driver is like I am just totally obsessed with God. And I want to see Him ASAP. And like
that's a good
like I want to see Him. I want to see Him right now. I guess if I'm totally honest, the human parts of me to say I don't want to die. I don't want to do that. I also don't want to see my family die. And it would be awesome if we could just all be together with Him as a family. And then also think about like the millions, well, not millions, but you know, metaphorically, the tons of relationships that we have within the church. It's like, you know, you see somebody and then you see them 5 days later, or you see them 2 weeks later or 2 months later. And it's like, if we all get to go home, we're all together permanently. I mean, that's life. And it's like, we don't do this anymore. So it's like, and some people might call that escapist, whatever, but it's like, this is truth. This is where we're going. This is what we were made for. We were created for this. And so
we shut off.
Okay. We're just getting good.
What were you saying? Let's go ahead and finish that thought.
Right,
this is what we were created for.
So this is what we were created for. And like I want that. I want that bad. Like it's primal even. Like I want to go there. And I want it now.
That's good stuff.
Falling in love with God. Like that's what Christianity is really about. Like it's all about falling in love with Him. And you know, there's a lot of people that do that in a lot of different ways. And just varying degrees of how deep you want to go and how much you want Him. And the way, when I look at this, it's like almost like this fairy tale romance. And it's like, all right, I am stranded here on this exile planet. Which is actually my home. It's kind of like The Matrix. It's kind of like, you know, Tom like Hanks with Gordon. I mean, it's like, it's this weird mashup. And, you know, it's scriptural that we are exiles here. And it's like, I want to be with the one that my heart loves. And, you know, I can't do that if I don't see Him. And so that drives so much of my feelings and passion into the end times. And it's like, now I'm like reaching and I'm like Q. All right, is Q legit? Is this because you know it's like, think about it, man. If my wife was like missing, she just, you know, disappeared. And you know, I don't, aliens came and got her and took her away to Area 51 or whatever. I mean, I would be looking for signs, anything. At any time. About where she's at, when she's coming home, everything.
That's a really good comparison.
Same thing with this. It's like I'm looking for signs. I don't know all the granular details. I want to. But, you know, Q falls into that and it's like, is this real?
That is such a can of worms that you just opened. So before we jump into Q, because Q, I feel like Q is going to be like its own like hour-long episode. It's just going to be. But one thing I wanted to be sure to touch on. And this is a really deep question that we probably won't be able to go all the way into, but why, or not why, but what would you say, like what would your approach be to the type of Christian who says, I don't understand the end times, so I'm not going to concern myself with it, it's going to happen how it's going to happen, and we can't know anything, so I'm just not going to pay attention to it.
I know, and I've had a couple of those conversations.
It drives me insane.
It does me too. Insane. It does me too.
But what would you say? What's your approach?
My approach is usually, really, it's like to connect with them on something else.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to change their heart probably on that. And I can still love you as a brother or sister, and that's great. Yeah. And we'll connect on something else. Yeah. And the way I kind of...
That's so mature.
Dude, the way I interpret it is that they're a different part of the body.
Yeah.
Like, I am the hand, and they are foot skin or something. So, I'm sorry. They're a foot. And we just do different things. It's like, I'm passionate about, you know, this relationship with God and these things, and you're passionate about these things. Yeah. And are you all in with Christ? Great. All right. That's good. Fantastic. And maybe one day, you know, here in a couple years when it all goes down, then you'll see and I'll tell you, I told you so.
That's
no, I'm
really
just kidding.
good.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
You have a very mature approach.
Well, thank you.
Mine is not so mature. So my whole thing is like, I honestly, that is what I do. I'm like, okay, I have had a couple conversations with some closer friends who I feel like I can have that like brother relationship with, like challenge each other.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And my whole like thing is, to someone who has that approach to eschatology, my whole approach is, why did the Lord give us the book of Revelation?
That's good.
But more than that, one thing, and I don't really like promoting like one teacher all the time. Yeah. But
it's okay.
One of the things Mike Bickle says is there are 150 chapters on the end times. Right. And I think he says there are like 88 or 89 in the Gospels. Yeah. And he's like, those 150 chapters in the Bible on the end times reveal the same Jesus that the Gospels do. Yeah, exactly. They reveal the same heart of the Father that the Gospels do. Yep. And so when we're trying to grow closer to him and connect with him, why do we neglect the 150? I agree. And just go for those 80? I at the heart of it, you know, sometimes I do get really frustrated, but at the core of the issue, my whole thing is like, it always goes back to, we want to know him more. We want to grow closer in relationship with him. And for me, when you look at the parts of Jesus that are revealed in the end times, it takes you deeper into who he is, because it reveals more of his intentions with his creation. Yeah, absolutely. And so, absolutely, to me, it's like, it's fine to say like we can't know everything, because we can't. Yeah. On the other hand, I think if you want to truly know, my wife's home. Yeah. If you want to truly know him, and if you truly want to dig deeper into who he is, looking into what happens at the end of the day, age will take you deeper into who he is. And so I agree. That's my whole approach. But I just wanted to see what you thought, because I know for a person like you who's in as deep as you are, you have to run into those types of conversations. I do, sometimes. And it's like I have to just, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, it goes back to 1 John. You know, it's like God is love. And, you know, you have to love your brother or sister, because if you love God, you're going to have this love for them. Yeah. And, I mean, I like the end times is one of my passions. It's not my deepest. Like, my deepest is, like, falling in love with God. And it's like, I can connect with that with anybody. Yeah. And, I mean, if I can't, then, I mean, I don't know if you're one of us. I mean, because that's standard criteria. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not that, like, if you're in here, you love God. Well, let's talk about that. Yeah. And so we can connect about that at least.